then you probably know that without the Ashford family's support, we'd be in serious trouble right now. I know that your son's marriage to Victoria Ashford has provided your company with a significant lifeline. Yes. Richard was quiet for a moment. At the wedding, I noticed you and Marcus seemed to know each other quite well. More than just old college friends. Elena kept her expression neutral. We dated. A long time ago. Before he met Victoria. I see. Richard nodded slowly. And now here you are, offering a business partnership with his family's company. Forgive me for asking, but what's your real motivation here? Elena appreciated his directness. Honestly, when I first decided to attend the wedding, I wanted to prove that I had succeeded without Marcus. That his rejection hadn't destroyed me. It was petty and human, but true. And now I see a legitimate business opportunity. Your company needs what I can provide. My company would benefit from your established client base and reputation. It makes sense from a purely practical standpoint. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in the idea of becoming the solution to your financial problems instead of the Ashfords. Elena met his gaze directly. You asked for honesty. There it is. Richard laughed, a genuine sound that filled the office. I appreciate your candor. Most people would have dressed it up in corporate speak. The truth is, Ms. Torres, I don't care about your motivations as long as the business makes sense. And this, he tapped the proposal, makes excellent sense. So you're interested? Very much so. But I need to discuss it with my board. And with Marcus. He'll be the primary point of contact if we move forward with this. Elena had expected this. That's not a problem. Marcus and I are both professionals. I'm sure we can work together. Even after. Richard trailed off. The business meeting. Thursday afternoon. Elena walked into Wellington Industries headquarters dressed in a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled back in a professional bun, her briefcase containing the proposal Jenna had prepared. She was here for business, nothing more. Richard Wellington's office was impressive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, dark wood furniture, walls lined with awards and photos. But Elena noticed the subtle signs of financial strain. The furniture was dated. The carpet showed wear. The company was putting on a good face, but underneath, they were struggling. Ms. Torres, thank you for coming. Richard shook her hand firmly. Please, have a seat. Can I offer you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm fine, thank you. Straight to business then. I like that. Richard sat across from her. I've been following your company's work, particularly your new data security platform. It's exactly the kind of innovation Wellington Industries needs to stay competitive. I'm glad you think so. I brought a proposal outlining how Torres Tech Solutions could integrate with your existing infrastructure. Elena handed him the folder. As Richard reviewed the documents, Elena studied him. He was older than Marcus, obviously, with silver hair and deep lines around his eyes. But there was a sharpness to his gaze, an intelligence that suggested he didn't miss much. This is impressive, Richard said finally. Very thorough. But I'll be honest with you, Ms. Torres. This kind of partnership would require significant capital investment on our end. Capital that's somewhat tied up at the moment. I'm aware of your financial situation, Mr. Wellington. That's why I've structured the proposal with flexible payment terms. Think of it as an investment in your company's future, not just an expense. Richard leaned back in his chair. You've done your homework. I always do. Late in the evening, as the party began winding down, Marcus found Elena again. This time, he looked desperate. Can we talk? Privately. I don't think your wife would appreciate that. Victoria's busy with her bridesmaids. Please, Elena. Just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Elena followed him to a quiet corner of the garden, away from the lights and music of the reception. I made a mistake, Marcus said the moment they were alone. The biggest mistake of my life. Marcus. No, let me say this. I think about you constantly. About us. About what I threw away. When I saw you today, looking so beautiful, so successful, so happy. God, Elena, I realized what an idiot I was. You're married, Marcus. As of 2 hours ago. To the wrong woman. His voice cracked. I married Victoria because she was safe, because her family could save my father's company, because I was scared. But I don't love her. I never loved her the way I loved you. Loved? Past tense. Love. Present tense. Elena, I never stopped loving you. Leaving you was the worst thing I ever did. I was young and stupid and ambitious, and I thought success meant money and status. But success without you is meaningless. Elena stood very still, his words washing over her. Part of her had dreamed of hearing this for 5 years. But now that she felt nothing but pity. Marcus, do you know what the worst part of how you left me was? Not that you chose her over me. Not even that you were too coward to tell me face. The worst part was that you made me doubt myself. For years, I wondered what was wrong with me. Why I wasn't enough. Why I wasn't worth fighting for. There was nothing wrong with you. It was all me. I know that now. It took therapy and time and building a life I'm proud of, but I finally understand that your choices were about your weaknesses, not mine. How lovely to meet you, Victoria said, her tone saying the opposite. I didn't realize Marcus had invited anyone from his past. I hope you don't mind, Elena replied sweetly. Marcus and I were quite close once. I couldn't miss celebrating his happiness. How thoughtful. Victoria's grip on Marcus's arm was visible enough to leave marks. Well, we should go? Family obligations, you understand. Of course. Congratulations again. As they walked away, Elena heard Victoria hiss at Marcus. Who is she really? Elena didn't hear his response, but she didn't need to. She had accomplished exactly what she came for. She had shown Marcus that she had moved on, that she was successful, that his rejection hadn't broken her. But more importantly, she had planted seeds of doubt. In Marcus's mind about his choices, in Victoria's mind about her husband's past, and in Richard Wellington's mind about a business partnership that could benefit them both. The night's conversations. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations. Old mutual friends from college approached Elena, shocked and delighted to see her. They asked about her company, her life, clearly impressed by how far she had come. You really made it, one former classmate said admiringly. I remember when you and Marcus were inseparable. We all thought you two would be the ones getting married. Life has a funny way of working out, Elena replied diplomatically. His loss, the friend said, loud enough for others to hear. You're clearly better off. These conversations didn't escape Victoria's notice. Elena could see the bride growing increasingly agitated, her smiles becoming more forced, her laughter more shrill. Every person who praised Elena, every story about her and Marcus's past, seemed to chip away at Victoria's perfect day. Elena should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she felt strangely empty. I've been reading about your work. Very impressive. Especially your new security platform. He glanced at Marcus, then back at Elena. I wonder if we might discuss a potential partnership. Wellington Industries could benefit from your technology. I'd be happy to hear more, Elena replied smoothly. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting? Excellent. Marcus, make sure Ms. Torres has our contact information before she leaves. As Richard walked away, Marcus stared at her. You're going to work with my father? If the terms are right. It's just business, Marcus. Is that what this is? Business. His voice dropped lower. Or is it something else? What else would it be? I don't know. Maybe you came here to hurt me. To get revenge. Elena laughed softly. Marcus, you really think I came to your wedding for revenge? How egotistical. I came because I was invited, and I stayed because your father made an interesting business proposition. Not everything is about you. The words hit their mark. Marcus's face reddened. Besides, Elena continued, I think you've done a fine job of hurting yourself. You don't need my help with that. What's that supposed to mean? It means you married a woman you don't love for her family's money, and now you're trapped in a golden cage. I don't need revenge, Marcus. You chose your own punishment. You don't know anything about my marriage. Don't I? I saw how you looked at her during the ceremony. Or rather, how you didn't. I saw how she watches you, controlling every move. You wanted success and stability. Well, you got it. I hope it was worth it. Before Marcus could respond, Victoria appeared at his elbow. Darling, your mother wants photos with the family. Her eyes were cold as they fixed on Elena. And who is this? Victoria, this is Elena Torres. An old friend from college. Elena, my wife, Victoria. We're polite but curious about who she was and why she was there. I'm an old friend, Elena explained smoothly. Marcus and I went to college together. This sparked immediate interest. Throughout dinner, Elena fielded questions about Marcus's past, carefully sharing stories that painted him as ambitious and determined, but never revealing the truth of their relationship. She was charming, engaging, the perfect guest. From across the room, she could feel Marcus watching her. Victoria never left his side, her hand always on him, marking her territory. But Victoria's attention kept drifting to Elena too, her expression growing increasingly hostile. After dinner, guests began mingling. Elena deliberately positioned herself near the bar, knowing Marcus would eventually find an excuse to approach her. She didn't have to wait long. "Elena." His voice came from behind her. She turned slowly, as if surprised to see him. "Marcus, congratulations on your wedding." He looked older up close. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, a tightness in his jaw that spoke of stress. "I can't believe you're here. You sent me an invitation. I didn't think you'd actually come." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You look incredible. I heard about your company, your success. I'm happy for you." "Are you?" Elena took a sip of her champagne, her eyes never leaving his face. "Of course. I always knew you were talented. Funny, I don't remember you mentioning that in your breakup text." Marcus flinched. "Elena, Mr. Wellington?" A man in an expensive suit interrupted them. "I hate to intrude, but I've been hoping to discuss the Mitchell account with you." "Of course," Marcus said, though his eyes stayed on Elena. "Elena, this is my father, Richard Wellington." Elena extended her hand. "Mr. Wellington, it's a pleasure." Richard's handshake was firm, his eyes sharp and assessing. "Torres, as in Torres Tech Solutions." "The same." Walked down the aisle with a smile that was more victorious than joyful. As Victoria passed Elena's row, their eyes met for a brief moment. Recognition flashed across Victoria's face, followed by something that looked like surprise, and then anger. But she kept walking, kept smiling, playing her role perfectly. When Victoria reached the altar, Marcus took her hands. For just a second, his eyes swept the crowd. They landed on Elena, and he froze. His face went pale, his mouth opening slightly in shock. Elena met his gaze calmly, her expression unreadable. The officiant cleared his throat, breaking the moment. Marcus jerked his attention back to Victoria, who was watching him with narrowed eyes. She had noticed where he was looking. The ceremony continued, but Elena could see Marcus struggling to focus. He stumbled over his vows. His hands shook as he placed the ring on Victoria's finger. And throughout it all, he kept glancing back at Elena, as if he couldn't quite believe she was there. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed Victoria, but there was no passion in it. It looked mechanical, obligatory. The guests applauded. Elena joined them, clapping politely, her face a mask of pleasant indifference. As the newly married couple walked back down the aisle, Marcus's eyes found Elena again. This time, she smiled at him. A small, knowing smile that said everything and nothing. Victoria noticed. Her grip on Marcus's arm tightened visibly, her smile becoming brittle. Let the games begin, Elena thought. The reception revelations. The reception was held in a massive tent decorated with thousands of white roses and fairy lights. Tables were set with crystal and china. A live band played soft jazz. Everything was perfect, curated, expensive. Elena found her assigned seat at a table with other guests she didn't know. They introduced themselves, business associates of the Ashfords, mostly. They. Heartbroken woman sobbing on her bathroom floor. The woman staring back at her was powerful, successful, and utterly in control. "You look like you're going into battle," Sophia said, arriving to help her get ready. "Maybe I am." "Elena, are you sure about this? You don't have to prove anything to him." "I'm not proving anything to him," Elena replied, fastening her diamond earrings. "I'm proving something to myself." The drive to the Vineyard estate took 2 hours. Elena used the time to meditate, to center herself, to remember why she was doing this. Not for revenge, not to win him back, simply to close a chapter that had been left hanging for too long. The estate was, predictably, breathtaking. Rolling hills covered in grapevines, a massive Victorian mansion, gardens that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. Cars lined the circular driveway, expensive models that spoke of the guest list's tax bracket. Elena handed her keys to the valet, took a deep breath, and walked toward the entrance. Her heels clicked confidently on the stone pathway. She held her head high. She was ready. The grand entrance. The ceremony was being held in the estate's rose garden. Elena arrived fashionably late, just as guests were being seated. She could feel eyes turning toward her as she walked down the aisle to find a seat. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is that Elena Torres?" The tech CEO? What's she doing here? I heard she and the groom used to date. Elena ignored them all, finding a seat near the back. She crossed her legs elegantly and waited, her expression serene. The ceremony began. Marcus appeared at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, his expression nervous. Elena studied him, trying to feel something. Anger, maybe. Or pain. But all she felt was a strange detachment, as if she were watching a stranger's wedding. Then Victoria appeared at the entrance, a vision in white lace and crystal beading. Her dress probably cost more than Elena used to make in a year. So he married money, Elena murmured, flipping through quarterly reports. Looks that way, Jenna confirmed. And there's more. Check the society page articles. Elena found what Jenna meant. Multiple photos of Marcus and Victoria at various events over the past 5 years. But in none of them did Marcus look truly happy. He smiled, but the smiles never reached his eyes. Victoria, on the other hand, always had her hand possessively on his arm, her expression triumphant, like someone who had won a prize. One article particularly caught Elena's attention. It was from a business magazine interview with Marcus from 6 months ago. The interviewer had asked about his success and his upcoming wedding. Marcus's response was telling. Success requires sacrifice. Sometimes you have to make practical choices to secure your future. Love is important, but stability matters more in the long run. Elena read that line 3 times. Practical choices. As if she had been the impractical one, and Victoria was the smart investment. The words burned. Are you sure you want to do this? Jenna asked quietly. Going to this wedding? Elena closed the folder and looked up, more sure than ever. Start working on a proposal for a strategic partnership with Wellington Industries. I want it ready by next month. Jenna's eyes widened. You want to work with them? I want them to need me, Elena corrected. There's a difference. The dress and the armor. For the wedding, Elena chose her weapons carefully. She selected a deep emerald green dress that complemented her skin tone perfectly. It was elegant, expensive, and absolutely stunning without being inappropriate. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup subtle but flawless. Looking in the mirror the morning of the wedding, Elena barely recognized herself. Gone was the struggling student who had worked 3 jobs. Gone was the... Sophia would tell her not to go. Her therapist would probably advise against it. Every logical part of her brain said it was a bad idea. But something deeper, something that still ached when she thought about that text message, that cowardly ending, made her want to face him one more time. Not for revenge, exactly. For closure. To prove to herself, and maybe to him, that she had not just survived but thrived without him. Elena picked up her phone and texted her assistant. Clear my schedule for the last weekend in June. I have a wedding to attend. As she hit send, she felt something shift inside her. Fear, maybe. Or anticipation. Or both. Marcus Wellington had walked out of her life without a backward glance. Now Elena Torres would walk back into his, and he would see exactly what he had lost. Elena didn't make any move without information. If she was going to attend Marcus's wedding, she needed to know exactly what she was walking into. The night after deciding to go, she called her head of research. Jenna, I need you to compile everything you can find on Wellington Industries and the Ashford family. Financials, news articles, social media presence, everything. Personal or professional interest? Jenna asked, always direct. Both. How soon can you get it to me? Give me 48 hours. 47 hours later, Jenna dropped a thick folder on Elena's desk. You're going to want to sit down for this. The information inside was eye-opening. Wellington Industries, the consulting firm Marcus worked for that had belonged to his father, was struggling. A series of bad investments and lost clients had left them hemorrhaging money. They were staying afloat by one lifeline: Victoria Ashford's family business. The Ashfords owned a chain of luxury hotels and had recently expanded into commercial real estate. They had thrown Wellington Industries several major contracts, essentially keeping them alive. Without Victoria's family support, Marcus's company would likely see. With her savings and a small business loan, Elena launched her tech startup. She poured all her pain, all her anger, all her heartbreak into building something that was entirely hers. She worked 18-hour days, taught herself new programming languages, networked with investors who actually saw her potential. The first year was brutal. There were moments she wanted to give up, moments she questioned if she was capable of success without Marcus's support. But those were the moments when she pushed hardest, determined to prove that she was more than the woman he had left behind. The second year brought small victories. Her first major client, her first profit, her first hire. By the third year, Elena's company had grown beyond her wildest expectations. The technology she developed revolutionized data security for small businesses. Investors were calling her. Industry publications were writing about her. She moved into a spacious office downtown and hired a team of talented developers. By the fifth year, Elena Torres was a name people in tech knew and respected. Her company was valued at millions. She drove a nice car, lived in a beautiful apartment, wore designer clothes because she could, not because she needed to impress anyone. She had rebuilt her life from ashes and created something Marcus could never take from her. Success that was entirely her own. But even success couldn't completely erase the scars. Late at night, she still sometimes wondered what she had done wrong, why she hadn't been enough, and she hated herself for still caring. The decision. Now, sitting at her kitchen table with Marcus's wedding invitation in her hands, Elena faced a choice. She could throw this away, ignore it, and continue moving forward with her life. Or she could attend. She could walk into that vineyard estate wearing success like armor and show Marcus Wellington exactly what he had thrown away. It took her 3 weeks to discover the truth through social media. Marcus wasn't just gone from her life. He was starting a new one with Victoria. The photos appeared on gossip sites and society pages. The successful young executive and the socialite heiress. The perfect power couple. In one photo, Victoria wore a massive diamond ring. They were engaged. Elena stared at that picture until her eyes burned. The man she had loved, the man she had sacrificed everything for, had proposed to another woman. Probably while he was still living in Elena's apartment. Probably while he was still telling Elena he loved her. The rage came later. First was the grief, raw and consuming, that left her sobbing on her bathroom floor at 3 in the morning. Then came the numbness, days where she moved through life like a ghost, barely eating, barely sleeping, barely existing. Rising from the ashes. Elena's best friend, Sophia, practically moved in during those dark months. She forced Elena to eat, dragged her to therapy, wouldn't let her drown in the depression that threatened to swallow her whole. "He doesn't deserve your tears," Sophia said one evening, taking the half-empty wine bottle out of Elena's hands. "He doesn't deserve another second of your time or energy." "I gave him everything," Elena whispered. 5 years of my life. My dreams. My future. For what? For a lesson, Sophia said firmly. A painful, terrible lesson about not losing yourself for someone else. But now you know better. Now you can do better. I don't know how. One day at a time. Starting tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and Elena made herself get out of bed. She showered, dressed, and sat at her laptop. She looked at her freelance work, at the skills she had honed while supporting Marcus's dreams, and she made a decision. She was going to build the company she had always dreamed of. They fought that night, their voices echoing off the walls of the apartment that suddenly felt like a cage. Marcus stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Elena sank to the floor, her heart racing, her mind spinning with fears she didn't want to name. He came back 3 hours later, apologetic and gentle. He held her, whispered that he loved her, promised that Victoria meant nothing. And Elena, desperate to believe him, chose to let it go. But trust, once cracked, is never quite the same. The text message that ended everything. 3 months later, everything fell apart in the most cowardly way possible. Elena was at home working on a major project for one of her clients when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen expecting a message from her client. Instead, it was from Marcus. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I'll send someone to pick up my things. Please don't try to contact me." Elena read the message 3 times before the words actually registered. She called him immediately. The call went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She texted back. "What are you talking about? Where are you?" No response. "Marcus, please. Talk to me." Nothing. "At least have the courage to tell me to my face." Silence. Elena sat there for hours, phone in hand, waiting for an explanation that never came. Her calls went unanswered. Her messages were ignored. It was as if Marcus had simply erased her from his life with the click of a button. The next day, A moving company showed up to collect his belongings. The movers were efficient and professional, carefully packing up the clothes he had left behind, the books, the pieces of a life they had shared. Elena watched numbly as they dismantled everything, removing all evidence that Marcus Wellington had ever existed in this space. "Do you want to leave him a message?" one of the movers asked kindly. Elena shook her head. What could she possibly say? What words existed for this kind of betrayal? He was going out. Where? Elena asked, trying to keep her voice light. Networking dinner. Important clients. Will you be late? Probably. Don't wait up. He was gone before she could say anything else. Elena sat alone in their apartment, surrounded by the life they had built together, and felt utterly isolated. The woman in the photograph. The first time Elena saw Victoria Ashford was in a photograph on Marcus's phone. She hadn't meant to snoop. The phone had buzzed while Marcus was in the shower, and Elena had glanced at the screen out of habit. The message was from Victoria. Last night was wonderful. Can't wait for the gala next weekend. Elena's stomach dropped. She clicked on the message thread before she could stop herself. The photos loaded, one after another. Marcus in a tuxedo standing next to a stunning blonde woman in a designer gown. Marcus laughing at some exclusive restaurant. Marcus at art galleries and charity auctions, always with Victoria beside him. When Marcus emerged from the shower, Elena was holding his phone. Who is Victoria? Her voice was eerily calm. Marcus froze, his face going pale, then flushing red. She's a colleague. It's work, Elena. These don't look like work events. Her family is connected to the firm. I have to attend these things. It's networking. You told me you couldn't bring me because they were professional events. They are. Victoria's just showing me the ropes, introducing me to the right people. It doesn't mean anything. But Elena saw the lie in his eyes. She had always been able to read him, and right now, his eyes were screaming the truth he wouldn't speak. Are you sleeping with her? The question hung in the air like a blade. No. Marcus's denial came too quick, too loud. God, Elena, why do you have to be so paranoid? I'm working my ass off to build a future for us, and you're accusing me of cheating? I'm asking, not accusing. Well, it feels the same. That ring you deserve. Just wait, Elena. Just wait. She waited. She believed. She sacrificed. Finally, after 2 years of struggle, Marcus got his break. A prestigious consulting firm offered him a position with a starting salary that seemed like a fortune compared to what they had been living on. Elena had never seen him so happy. They celebrated with cheap champagne in their apartment, dancing in their tiny kitchen, laughing about how far they had come. This is it, Marcus had said, spinning her around. This is the beginning of everything. He was right, but not in the way Elena had hoped. The slow fade. The change didn't happen overnight. It was subtle at first, small shifts that Elena tried to convince herself were normal adjustments to Marcus's new life. He started working longer hours, coming home late with stories about important clients and networking events. The apartment they had shared suddenly seemed too small, too shabby. Marcus began talking about moving to a better neighborhood, somewhere that reflected his new status. We should upgrade our life, he said one evening. I'm making good money now. We deserve better than this. I like our apartment, Elena had replied, feeling a strange unease. It's ours. We built our life here. Marcus had frowned. Don't you want more, Elena? Don't you have any ambition? The words had stung. She had given up her ambitions for his. But she didn't say that. Instead, she smiled and nodded, trying to be supportive. The distance grew wider. Marcus started attending company events without her, claiming they were professional networking and not appropriate for plus ones. He bought expensive suits and upgraded his car. Meanwhile, Elena was still working her freelance jobs, still in her old jeans and t-shirts, still dreaming of the company she might start someday. One evening, Marcus came home and barely looked at her. He went straight to the shower, changed into new clothes that still had tags on them, and announced. She had looked up then, meeting those green eyes that would later haunt her dreams. He was handsome in an effortless way, with dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead and a smile that seemed to promise the world. Against her better judgment, she had said yes. That coffee date turned into hours of conversation. Marcus talked about his plans to revolutionize the business world, to build an empire, to prove himself to everyone who had ever doubted him. Elena shared her dreams too, of creating technology that could help people, of starting her own company someday, of making a difference. "We're going to do amazing things," Marcus had said, taking her hand across the table. "I can feel it." And for a while, it seemed like he was right. The sacrifice years. Their relationship grew quickly, intensely. Within months, they were inseparable. Marcus moved into Elena's tiny studio apartment to save money. It was cramped and the heating barely worked, but they didn't care. They had each other, and that was enough. Or so Elena had thought. When Marcus graduated, he struggled to find the high-powered position he had dreamed about. The economy was tough, and his lack of connections hurt him. Month after month, rejection letters piled up. Elena watched him grow frustrated, bitter, questioning his worth. "I'm going to make it," he would say, pacing their small apartment. "I just need the right opportunity. One break, that's all I need." "You will," Elena always assured him. "I believe in you." To support them both, Elena took on more work. She coded websites late into the night, freelanced for tech companies, built apps for startups. Her own dreams of graduate school faded into the background. There wasn't time, wasn't money. Marcus needed her support, and she gave it willingly, believing they were building a future together. "When I make it big, I'll take care of you," Marcus promised her constantly. "You won't have to work like this anymore. We'll travel the world. I'll buy why." The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, cream-colored and elegant, the kind that promised expensive celebrations. Elena Torres held it between her fingers, her name written in gold calligraphy that probably cost more than she used to make in a week back when she was struggling. Back when she was in love. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. The return address told her everything. Marcus Wellington, the man who had promised her forever and delivered only heartbreak. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid her finger under the sealed flap. Inside, embossed letters announced the upcoming marriage of Marcus Wellington to Victoria Ashford. The date was set for 3 months away at some exclusive vineyard estate. Of course it was. Victoria came from old money, the kind that Marcus had always envied, always chased. Elena sat down at her kitchen table, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows of her penthouse apartment. 5 years had passed since Marcus had walked out of her life. 5 years since he had shattered her world with a text message. Yet holding this invitation felt like reopening a wound that had never fully healed. When love was all we had. She closed her eyes and the memories flooded back, unbidden and unwanted. They had met in college during a winter semester. Elena was a scholarship student studying computer science, working 3 part-time jobs to afford textbooks and ramen noodles. Marcus was in business school, charming and ambitious, with dreams that stretched far beyond their small campus town. He had approached her in the library one evening when she was coding until midnight. "You're always here," he had said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Don't you ever sleep?" "Sleep doesn't pay bills," she had replied without looking up from her laptop. "Fair enough. But maybe you'd take a break for coffee?" "My treat."